Alright, so before we get everything soaking, I was just going to show you real quick what I use to clean them with. Now some people use like guitar string, they say whatever guitar string, but this is airplane cable, and what it is the safety lift cable for like a garage door opener. So you can get this over at Lowe's, Home Depot, or any kind of hardware store. This little tiny cable. The good thing about it is it's got tons of strands, and so what I do is, depending on what jet I'm cleaning, is how many strands I use. So for example, this nasty main jet over here, that's got to be stopped up because the whole thing, you can see it's just covered up in crap. I use a lot of little strands, and you can wiggle it down in there like that right there and get all that gunk cleaned out. Spray you some carb cleaner, and I could use even more because it's fitting pretty loosely. But the nice thing about it is it's got like little curls to it, so you can rub around in there and it'll eat away at all that crud that was in that jet. Now I'm going to clean these up and soak them, but as you can see, it's clean now. Clean enough you could actually start the bike with it. But we use that then like for the little bitty jet, like this is the idle jet, so it's a 41, so it's got a tiny hole. What I would do is take my little curls and get one curl off of this right here. You just take it and put it in the car, or in the jet, and like I say, these are nasty stopped up, but it's so tiny, see, I can slip it down in that gobbed up looking little jet, and boom, you got your jet at least cleaned out some. Now like I say, we'll soak them and clean them on up, but that's how I clean out those little jets to keep them clean. Same thing with the emulsion tube. There's little bitty holes on the sides of the emulsion tubes, so after you soak them, take that single strand and it'll fit in the emulsion tube holes as well. And up top on the carburetor, like I say, there's a big one. So right there, there's a huge air jet on the front right there. So almost that whole cable will slip in there. So I would be able to just take that off, spray a little bit of WD-40 or carb cleaner on it, scrub around, and I can clean that one out. The other one is very small, it's like a 50, and so you would need to get just one wire or two wires and go in there and scrub that little guy out and get him cleaned out right in the middle. So there we go. So that's what I use. Then we got to go all the way around, and like I say, for the bowls there is a super tiny hole right here that only one wire of this wire strand will fit in there. But you don't know if you really got it, and it takes a lot of work if they're gobbed up to get them cleaned out. And so the only way you'll know is if you can get the wire in there, and you'll have to work and work and work. You got to go to the top, do the very same thing, play back and forth, and you'll get it when you can spray some carb cleaner, put the needle in this hole, and if it'll blow out of that hole, you got it. But right now, see, this one's stopped up, and so it's not blowing out of that hole right there. So I got a lot of work to do to get that tiny little port opened up, because that's my choke, and that will really throw you off so bad on these carburetors if you don't clean that one little guy out. The rest of them are pretty big. You just got to run down through there and clean all the little flows out, and you'll be in good shape. Well, alrighty, let's get everything soaking, and then we'll come back and we'll do a reassembly, and then we'll see how our little carburetors work. Alright, so everybody's in the chem dip. All the little brass parts and all of that's in there, and I got one carburetor in there. The other carburetor's waiting. In a few hours we'll dip him. But just wanted to note things that you don't want to chem dip. And that is these little plastic washers that are on the ends right here on the slides. So they go on both ends. So you don't want to chem dip those guys. You don't really want to chem dip your throttle plates, because then it'll take your markings off. You can just clean them by hand. You definitely don't want to chem dip the choke, because it's got a little rubber thing on the end there, and if you chem dip it, you're going to eat that rubber. So that one we're going to clean up by hand with just a toothbrush, something like that. Don't chem dip your diaphragms. We'll clean all that up by hand, and that's about it. But anything rubber you don't want to chem dip, because it's going to eat it. So we got all those parts remaining. We're going to clean those up by hand, and we're chem dipping all the little brass things like the emulsion tubes and the jets and all that. So let's let this sit for about 3 hours, and then we'll swap to the other carburetor, then we should start being able to put some things back together once we hand clean all of this on the table. Alright, so with everything soaked and cleaned out, so I got it all cleaned up, but I'll show you real quick some of the really tough ones, and you got to have, like I say, these little wires. So this one right here, if you look down in here, this hole lines up to this hole down here in the bowl. Now this is really important. It's a tiny little hole, and so let me measure the wire. You probably can't even see the wire in there, but there's a little bitty hole that goes down through there, and that's really important for your choke circuit because that's where the fuel comes up and goes up to the little stinger right there that goes up to the choke circuit. So let me just show you real quick what size wire, but you'll have to poke around and poke around. This is one of the worst ones to get because it's so tiny, but you'll get it, and you'll know you got it when the wire sticks in there. And you can also take your fingers and pull up on it and then measure down, and as long as you're past the height of that hole right there, then you know you've cleared it out. But as far as the wire goes, like I say, it's a tiny little wire for a tiny little hole and it just barely fits. But if you're looking for measurements, it is, get that sticker off there, it is a 0.17 millimeter, or if you're looking at that, it's a 6/1000. And so it's a super tiny little hole right there. But you got to poke and poke and poke and spend a lot of time trying to poke down in there and clear it out. But you'll know you got it when you can take some carb cleaner and spray it in the hole down here, and it'll come up, bubble up out there. So then you know you got it cleared. So let's spray a little carb cleaner, and you can see that it bubbled up and came out. So I know I'm clear. So that one takes a while to get right there if it's dirty. You might get lucky that it's not dirty if you're just cleaning up some good carbs. So right there is a hard one. And then we got to work our way on around. So while we got these exposed, a lot of times, and you saw the other video maybe out on the channel about the seat getting messed up. Well, if you get you a set of these right here, these are torch tip cleaners, and so it's a bunch of these little guys right here that are different sizes of these little cleaners right there. Well, one of them fits right in there, and so it won't fit up on the scrubby part, but it'll fit on the inside. So what you do, you got to put that in there and wiggle that guy around and get him so that you can see it come out in the middle right there. But you don't want to push all the way through and scrub it. You just want to clean that hole out. So you got to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle and get its little nose down in there, and you can get those cleaned out, and that's going to clean up that seat a little bit so you can adjust your air fuel properly. So if you want to know the dimensions on that little guy, we'll zero again, and you can see that this torch tip is 91 or 0.91 millimeter, or over in English it is about 35 thousandths. And so that's what you need. If you go up here, it's 92. It's not going to fit. So it's really, really tight. So you can see it's 36 or 92. So that's the little guy right there that you can use to clean out your needle seat and make sure you get that seat set. Then the rest of it is just using the little scrubby wires, pieces of the little wires right here, and going through and cleaning everything out. So let me show real quick where all the flows go in there so you can make sure you get all your little holes opened up. One more thing about the choke circuit, this little stinger right here that goes in that little hole. So when you put them together, it goes up inside of that really tough one. There is also a tiny little hole right on the side of it right there. So look real close, and you'll need to get your tiny, tiny little wire and poke right in there. That's what lets the air out of this tube right here. So when you go to start it, it's going to start real easy with the choke circuit. But look right there, there's a tiny little hole right on the side of that right there. You got to clean that little guy out as well. So let's get set up with some carb cleaner, and I'm going to squirt it around, and we'll show where all these little holes go. Alright, so we figured out the bowl. You got to squirt the carb cleaner right there, and it'll come out on top. So that one's a hard one. We got to get that one. Now, up top up here, you got your air jets. And so these air jets go down, and they provide air into the idle circuit as well as the run circuit. So if we start with the idle circuit, so it's the bigger one right here. And like I say, there's no need to take these out. You can clean them. Just take the little wire and scrub down in there, and then you'll blow them out. So the idle circuit, the front one right there, goes from there, and it goes down the side and it goes up to the middle, and then it comes across to the idle circuit. So if I squirt carb cleaner in that one right there, then I should get, let me turn it around so you can see. If I squirt it in the idle circuit, you'll get fuel come out right here on your idle, and then you'll also get carb cleaner or fuel, whatever you put in there. It'll come out and it'll come over to this side, so it's the air circuit. So if I block this one off and I squirt it with this one down, it should come out of that one as well. So you can see it dripping out right here too. So it comes down, goes through this one for the air, comes across, goes to this one. Now from there, it's going to go up on your mix needle, and it goes up to these little holes that are right inside the throat. So if I squirt here, I should get cleaner come out the throat right there. You can see it come out right there on the throat. Should also come out on that hole that's right up underneath the butterfly right there. Alright, so that's the air side of the upper for the idle circuit. Now the other one right here, this is a smaller one. This is for the run circuit. So when you squirt it in here, it's gonna go down, comes down through here, and it goes right into the throat where the emulsion tube is. So if that little hole that cuts right across there is clear, when I squirt it up here, it should run out of the main jet where the emulsion tube goes. So let's set him up and squirt him, and you'll see it come out of the main jet slot right there. So you can see it dripping out on my finger right there. So that air circuit is clear because it just runs down and goes right to the main. So we got our air circuits cleaned out. That's good. As far as this one, we got it cleaned out because it came up here, and you'll see it bubble out of both of these sets of holes right there. As far as your choke circuit, it's pretty big. The choke circuit comes up through that little stinger right here. It goes up, so if I squirt here, it ought to come out up top up here on my choke circuit. And so that one's a little hard to do because it's kind of small. I usually spray myself in the face. So we'll put our glasses down. So when you squirt that one, you ought to get fuel up top up here. So let me flip it over. And you can see fuel runs out right up here, going up to the choke circuit. So everything's good there, and like I say, there's a little bitty hole right there. This one goes up, it's just a cross drilling, and so it doesn't go anywhere. You don't get anything out of that one. This one crosses back to the bowl. So that one you should see carb cleaner come into the bowl. This one is the main fuel coming in, and so it should come out right here when I squirt fuel in that one. And so you can see it drip out. So we're all pretty good. So we got everything cleaned up, and we should be about ready to go with all of our cross drilling. So those are the main ones, and we are good to go. So now what we got to do is start our reassembly. Now for these carburetors, these guys were bad. They had bad shaft seals right here. So you can see these little green seals. Well, if you go looking for these, you're probably not going to find them because I have to cut the sides off of these little guys right here. So I made up quite a few. I'll throw some out on eBay in case anybody's wanting to do this full rebuild like this. But these guys are really important because they keep the air from coming in through the side of the carburetor and messing up your air fuel mix. And so right here is a new set of them. Most of them are bad. They were really bad on these that we saw. So we got those changed out. So now we got everything done. Everything's cleaned up. With my shafts out, I took some Scotch-Brite and I buffed those guys so they won't mess up my seals. I'll put a little Vaseline on them when we get started. The floats, these were the old floats, and if you shake them and there's no fuel in them or anything in them, they're probably still good. You can put them down in some fuel and see if they float good. No issues there, so we can rebuild those. All of this stuff comes with a new kit. All these little float cutoffs and things like that. These guys are good now. I've cleaned them up, and so they're a little still dirty, but they move. So that's okay. As long as they're moving with the springs, then we're in good shape. So now we can start a reassembly process and get these carbs put back together so we can breathe some life into them. Oh, one other thing, for these, you got to make sure all of these guys cross over
these little holes right here on your emulsion tubes, make sure those are really, really clean, because they won't clean themselves up if they got crunchy old fuel in them. You're going to have to go through there and take your little wire and poke down through all of those little holes and get them all cleaned up. So let's get set up here and we'll start putting this thing back together, and then we'll be ready to throw it on the 920 and see if we can fire that bike up with them.